Hello and welcome to Find Your Freedom, a podcast dedicated to helping you truly find freedom in all aspects of life. Join your hosts and their expert guests as they share practical tips and strategies for finding more freedom in your life. It's time to take control of your life and create the future you want. Let's find your freedom. Here are your hosts, Lenny the Boss and Omid Rad Investor.
Boom, boom, boom. Check this out. We are back with another episode of Find Your Freedom. And before we jump into our total cool guest friend that we have here today, right? You know that we have something for you to help you out in your journey to finding your freedom. It's a whole toolkit. You want this, is easily downloadable, is absolutely free. All right. All you have to do is go to findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. That's right. findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Go there. It's free, easily downloadable. Believe me, it'll help you out with your journey. All right. Now that is out the way. All right. We got one of the coolest names here, honestly speaking. You know, I thought my name was pretty damn cool, but he got me beat, right? You know, his name right here is the Flippin Mayor. And the cool thing about it is we're going to get into the mayor part. And that's the kicker. That's what makes it official. That's what makes it super cool, right? You know, he's based out of based outside of Nashville, where he just loved all his flipping work. You know, he was the actual mayor, right out of Nashville in Pleasant View, Tennessee for 8 years. That means that there's people who actually liked him because he got more than one term, right? You know, but man, he's a big.
It's only because my mom made it hard.
He's a huge mindset guy. So, hey, Perry, man, welcome to the show. We appreciate you. Thank you for we thank you for coming on. How you doing today, man?
Man, Lenny, Omid, man, the pleasure is all mine. I promise, dude. And I got to tell you, I'm used to being the guy on the podcast with the best hair, but Omid got me beat by a mile, man. He's on point today.
All right, guys.
Much appreciated.
I got something cool for you guys then. So, Omid and I just was in Nashville at an MTR conference. And before that you go on, and you got to tell me if this is what you two do, all right? The guy, I was interviewing the guy. He pulled out his phone. He said, "Hold on, before you interview me, let me check the fro." So
Yeah.
he calls it a fro check. So you got to do your fro. He was fixing it here. Like, like, all right, cool. Now I know. And if you didn't guys know, before you start, you got to do a fro check.
Yeah, there you go. Always. But
all right, hey,
I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I feel like a responsibility of a mayor is you gotta look good. Like, I don't know what your age is, but man, like, you look like crisp and clean, and so I was gonna compliment you as well. So, you know,
dude, man, I'll take it, man. My wife won't let me out of the house looking frumpy, so I gotta be on point all the time.
there you go.
That's a great partner to have, man. Great partner to have. But man, we want to jump, into some things. So before we do, can you just give the listeners just some background on who you are?
Yeah, so my name is Perry Keenan, aka the Flippin Mayor, and got into real estate investing with a friend of mine around 2004, 2005, and went to a infomercial style seminar from a guy named Ron LeGrand. Ron LeGrand was kind of the godfather of the late night TV, 2:00 in the morning, buy my VHS tape type stuff. And he came to Nashville and did this seminar, which really was just a bait and switch because, it's like $200 to go to the seminar. But then at the end of the seminar for $5,000, you can come to his boot camp and he'll teach you all the real stuff you need to know. And so I said, yeah, no, I think I got a good handle on it so far and I'll figure the rest out. And so got into house flipping, and then he and I wanted to do some different stuff with house flipping. And my wife and I were pregnant with our first child. And so we split ways. We're still good friends. He and I had dinner the other night. Anyway, did that. And 2012 came along, God opened some doors and got elected as mayor in our hometown, and then reelected in 2016. And then after 8 years, I said, that's enough. I'm not running for a third term. And all the while doing kind of the house flipping and real estate along the way.
I mean, that's really amazing. I mean, to think that you kind of jump into, you go to watch TV, and then you get inspired, and then you kind of jump into the flipping sort of business. And it was at a time right before the bubble. So how was that transition as you're kind of like going into the bubble, and like what sort of strategies did you use to kind of grow, or even like get into the space?
I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for people that are out there, because sometimes you get people on podcasts and they tell you all the puppy dogs and rainbows, and they don't ever tell you about the stuff when you're digging the ditch. And
That's correct.
and so he and I, we did well on our first flip. We made about $10,000 together, and thought, man, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that worked. And then we lost money on the next two, and we're like, oh, there it is. And so kind of said, okay, that figured that out. And then after that, we did really well. We kind of dialed in. And our specialty at that time was basically just going to the courthouse steps and buying foreclosures. And then, so we would buy a foreclosure and do a cosmetic flip and get in there and make $15,000-$20,000, and then go skipping down the street and go do the next one. And so when he and I decided we were going to do different business paths, my wife and I, literally, it was right before the bubble, and man, we just couldn't do wrong. I mean, we had the Midas touch, and everything we flipped was just boom, 30 days another one, boom, 30 days another one. And we were doing really, really well. And then when the market crashed, I couldn't have gotten Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett approved to buy a house. Like, it was awful. And so at that time, we were stuck holding 5 mortgages, including our own personal home. And so we ended up selling 2 just at a discount, just to get that monkey off our back. The other 2 that we couldn't sell, we ended up putting renters in, and we're upside down on those to the tune of about $1,000, between $800 and $1,000 a month. And so all during that, 2008, 2009, all the way up until about 2013, 14, we're making that extra just to try to keep afloat. And I'll never forget, we had our daughter in 2007, and we're treading water, and it was awful, and had actually considered bankruptcy. And my mom and dad just instilled in us as kids, you fight until you absolutely just can't fight anymore. Perseverance. And so when we did that, we said, okay, well, if bankruptcy is not going to be an option for us, and I don't begrudge anybody that's done that in the past, because that's a financial decision that each person has to make on their own. But for us, it was just not going to be an option, and we just fought our way out of it. And in 2014, I was just done. I was just tired, man. Felt like treading water forever, and had started flipping houses again. But it was great. We flip a house, we'd make $10,000, $15,000 in profit. We'd go find another one, flip that one, make $10,000, $15,000 in profit, but we just could not get ahead. And so sat down with mom and dad and was just kind of laying it all out. And they said, you know what? We've got a family friend. His name is Johnny. And Johnny is really like a second dad to me. And they said, you need to go and just sit down with Johnny and just lay it all out, just like you did with us. And so called Johnny up, called him Pops, and said, hey, Pops, you got time for lunch next week? And he said, yeah. So we met for lunch. It is a little Italian place, white paper tablecloths, the traditional thing. And I brought, all of my notes and everything. And guys, I kid you not, I've got this picture somewhere and I need to find it. It looked like algebra equations all over this tablecloth by the time we were done with a 4-hour lunch. And again, I kid you not, the owner of the restaurant came at 2:00 and set down a pitcher of sweet tea, because we are in the South, and a pitcher of water. And she said, hey, Johnny, you know how to lock up. I'm going to go. I'll be back in a couple hours. Just lock up when you guys are done. And she left, and it was just he and I in the restaurant. And at the end of that 4-hour lunch, he said, what you've done is you've essentially created a job for yourself. You're making $10,000 to $15,000 every, 2 to 3 months. He said, it's a good job. I mean, it's flexible. You don't have to ask for time off if you want to go on vacation. You're always making dance recitals and baseball practice, and you're making all your family events, but you're never going to get ahead. You need to get back into rentals, and you need to get to 10 as quickly as possible. And I remember it to this day. I thought, oh my dear Lord, like I can't get rid of the 2 that I've got. Why in the hell would I want to add 8 more? Like, what do you think? And he laid it all out, and he just put a plan in front of him. And he said, trust me, when you get to 10, the pressure will be off. And so it worked, and I followed it exactly the way that he said. And so now when I teach people about that, I just call it, the power of 10.
Power of 10. Power of 10. All right, man, it's a lot to unpack here. All right. And I want to backtrack, kind of bring it back up to Pops, because I like Pops. Pops pretty cool. One day, hopefully, Perry, you could introduce me to Pops. I'm gonna call him Pops too. All right.
Please.
So, all right. So you jump into this flipping game. The first flip that you did, you were very successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, boom, you ran into a problem. Your next 2 flips, was bad, right? You lost money, but you continue on. Right. Mm-hmm. Then the next thing, things is working out, and then the market crashed on you. Right. And you stuck with all these mortgages. Right. You sold a couple underwater on the others that you have, barely, making, ends meet. Right. Mm-hmm. But you stuck with it. Okay.
That's right.
Then, you come to a point where you just stress and you need extra help. What was that point like before you actually said, I'm going to Pops? Because you have all these points in your life where it wasn't working out at some time. Why you just didn't say, you know what? I tried 2 or 3 times in real estate. It's not working. I'm just going to go ahead and go build, I don't know, a business that sells shoes or whatever the situation is. Like, what was the driving force that kept you coming back?
Again, Mom and Dad had always just instilled in us a no quit attitude. Like I know now it's popular to call it mindset, but back then we didn't call it mindset. It was just something that you just did. And so having that no quit attitude really was instilled in us at a young age. And my wife is much the same way. We had a different upbringing, but still the same thing. Her parents just instilled that same in her. And we just said, you know what? We don't want to lay our head down in 5 years and say, gosh, if we'd have just tried those other 2 things that somebody else had told us about, maybe it would have been different. Like I don't like living by what ifs and shoulda wouldas, as we call it. I want to be able to go through and just full steam ahead until I absolutely just can't. And then I'll take a nap and get up and do it again,
So you're a young dad at the time. You're doing the flipping business, and then there's probably some sort of opportunity or some sort of idea that sparks it, like that you're want to get into kind of the political stuff. So, I like the versatility that you have. So maybe walk us through kind of the thought process around that and how you kind of transition into being the Flippin Mayor.
Yeah. So in 2012, I don't ever shy away from my faith. I don't have a problem telling people that I'm a believer. But inside of 2 weeks, I had 3 different people in 2 weeks come up to me in around Christmas of 2012 and said, "Hey, you ever thought about running for mayor? You ought to run." Or Christmas of 2011, January of 2012, and said, "You really ought to look at running for mayor." And none of those 3 people knew each other. It's not like they all got together and said, "Hey, I'm going to see him at this event. I'm going to talk to him." And then it just, so I figured, okay, God's trying to get my attention. And so I put some feelers out and kind of looked at it and said, okay, well, if it's meant to be, then, he'll open those doors. And sure enough, literally just put all of my fight into it, just like Mom and Dad said you do, and got elected in 2012. And still doing the real estate stuff at that point, a little here and a little there, because being mayor of my hometown paid a whopping $1,000 a month. I know you want my job, and so
freedom, baby.
that's how you don't find your freedom, is get into politics. I assure you. Having good hair doesn't hurt, but that definitely doesn't help. Yeah, that being mayor does not help. And so, it was one of those things where it was just an awesome opportunity. It was a great 8 years. We had ups and downs, but being right outside of Nashville, I truly feel like that I was the best person for that time. To be able to put some things in place in our community to make sure that if the growth was going to come, and it did, that it was the right kind of growth. It was kind of growth that would be a benefit to our community, because, I tell people all the time, in 20 or 30 years, nobody's going to remember who the mayor was back in 2012 or 2016, but they can look around and they can see the mark that you leave in your parks and in your building styles and your design standards and that type of thing. And so during all of that, to supplement my income, because $1,000 a month, obviously isn't going to pay the bills, started getting back into house flipping. And I had this one guy, we were flipping a house over in Clarksville, which is close to Fort Campbell, where the 101st Airborne is stationed. And this guy was doing siding for us. And I typically tried to go as humbly as possible, because that's again also how I was raised. And so I would never wear any of my mayor garb over, when I'm meeting with the contractors and that kind of thing, because I just didn't want them to think that I thought I was better than them, and I didn't want them to treat me any differently. And so this one meeting had run long, and I didn't get a chance to change out of my city polo that I had that had Perry Keenan Mayor on the chest. And so I pull up to the job site, and the siding guy's standing there, and I get out, and he immediately looks at me and he says, "What are you wearing?" And I was like, "Oh boy, here it comes." And I said, "No, man." He said, "What are you're the mayor?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're the house flipping mayor." And I said, "Oh, believe me, I've been called the Flippin Mayor more than once, I assure you." And so he just busted out. And so it just kind of stuck. It was kind of one of those tongue-in-cheek things where you don't take yourself too seriously. And so ever since then, he would always call me. He's like, "Oh, it's the Flippin Mayor." And I'm like, "Yep, it's definitely the Flippin Mayor." So there you go.
Wow. The Flippin Mayor is a cool name. I'm gonna let you know that.
Thank you.
I like I said, I have to, I have to give credit where credit's due. I think my name is cool, but when I saw your name, I'm like, someone out here got me beat. So I'm just honored that we were able to be friends. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you, man. You have a lot of ventures here, right? You flip houses and mayor, husband, dad, son to many, right? Not just one son to many, right? And got some cool ass hair going on, right? On top of all that, they say that for you to look the way you look, for you to sound the way you sound, for you to be as confident as you are, that behind every strong man is a strong woman.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us just an idea of, how strong, or what does your wife mean to you in the success for you and your family? If you don't mind sharing.
Listen, she's a rock. My wife is amazing, and I'm not just getting paid to say that. She's definitely not within earshot, and honestly, she doesn't listen to a lot of the podcasts that I do, because she's heard it all before. Again, using air quotes. But she really is pretty freaking awesome. She is just one that has said, "Hey, whatever your passion is, let's do it. Whatever you feel like that God's laid on your heart, then let's run with it." And she's just always been rock solid. Plus, she's really hot, and so that doesn't hurt either. So So she's an amazing mom, and she's got a really good head on her shoulders, and she's a great balance for me. She is a true life partner, in the sense of that I start to get off kilter or go in the wrong direction. She's really good at helping me hit the correction button, and we jokingly sometimes we'll refer to it as the edit button. I got to hit the edit button and go back and look at doing things a different way. And so, I know that I'm definitely blessed in that. And I hope that I give her the same levels of support that she gives me. I'm sure there's times that I could always do better. Sometimes we let our male egos get in check, or need to get in check, and they, get in the way. But ultimately, I think whether it's a spouse as a partner, or like you guys as partners on this podcast, or, business partners that you have, you want to make sure that you've got somebody that either helps you pick up the slack when you can't, or somebody that helps keep you on point and on track when you start to, veer off course a little bit, and can do it without a lot of ego. And I have found that is huge for people, not just in marriage, but in business or in politics of, being mayor and working with folks. It's tremendous. So my wife has always been great at that. My mom's really good at it too. She's, she and dad both help make sure that I've got a pretty decent head on my shoulders, not just the good hair, but the head to go with it. And so, she's, she really helped set that foundation.
No, I think, I think you guys both kind of, talk about the value of having like a strong partner, because I think there's so many responsibilities that you're handling, but you got to kind of juggle everything. And like you said, you feel, she may fill in where you may need assistance, and then that can change, and that can kind of vary over time as far as, what is needed, but having that strong support system allows, everybody to kind of do well together. So,
awesome.
So speaking of like politics and like that, being mayor, like what's one takeaway? Like you had that experience. It's very unique because not a lot of people get to do that. And I'm sure you have like endless stories, but what is like one takeaway as far as like in retrospect that you could share with the listeners, like just going through that experience?
I get asked on a regular basis, what's like the one thing that you're most proud of? It kind of goes back to what I'd alluded to earlier. If you're humble enough to check your ego at the door when you're doing something like this, it will really come back tenfold for you. And so, like the thing that I'm most proud of is around 2015, 2016, somewhere right in there, we had a veterans group approach our city council and ask, if we could look at potentially donating some land over at our community park to put in a veterans memorial. And so, my grandfather was a colonel in the Army, and that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And I went in and said, I would love to. We put it in front of the city council. We voted on it unanimously to be able to do that. And I worked with the local Civitan group to be able to put that project together. And, I tell people all the time, 50 years from now, nobody's going to know who the mayor was back in 2016. And to be honest, they're not really going to care. But knowing that their grandparents or their family relatives or their family name is preserved in that veterans memorial there for generations to come, man, that's freaking awesome. And when you've got something like that, that you can look back on with, your tenure as mayor, because obviously there were great days, but then there were days that weren't great. And you can go back and look and say, that's something that's always going to stand as a memorial to a generation that really needs to be, applauded for what they've done. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that's really cool. And the reason why I say that is because I seldom think about when I leave this place, what is the thing that people are going to remember me by?
Mm-hmm.
And by you just saying that, just, hey, like, what are the, important things that's very important. But I do have to ask a question. And if I don't ask this question, a few of my friends, the audience is going to kill me. All right. So we don't have mayors, on our podcast that often.
Mm-hmm.
So all of us watch a lot of TV, watch a lot of movies,
Yes.
right? How real, are they, like, how much relatable is this things we're watching in these TV shows and in the movies to the real world?
Not much.
Oh, man.
I know it. No, nobody from the West Wing ever called me. Nobody from the show Diplomat never, none of them ever popped in my door and asked for a meeting. But let me break it down for you and give you a glimpse into what it's like to be a small town mayor outside of Nashville, Tennessee. So, our one of our assistants, she sent me a text message one day. My wife and I were in the car, and she said, "You need to call Mrs. Jones. She is really mad about dogs at the park." And then big capital letters in the text, it said, "But call me first!" exclamation point. And I'm like, okay. So I called Jamie and I said, "Hey, Jamie, what's going on?" She's like, "Well," she said, "you need to call Mrs. Jones. She's really mad about dogs at the park." And she said, I want to give you a little backstory to it. I just don't want you going in and getting hit with a buzzsaw." And I said, "Okay, man, that's awesome. Thank you, Jamie." So I called Mrs. Jones. "Mrs. Jones, this is Perry Keenan. How are you?" She said, "Not so good today, Mayor. How are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm okay, but let me see how I can help. What's going on?" She said, "Well, we got a real problem with dogs in our city, and I'm really worried about, somebody having their kids outside and people not watching their dogs in the neighborhood, and they're just letting them run loose, and somebody's going to get mauled by one of these vicious dogs in the neighborhood, and you've got to do something about this." And I said, "Okay, well, have you tried calling animal control?" "Yes, but by the time they get here, the people have already put the dogs up." Which told me that it probably really wasn't as big an issue if the people are actually putting the dogs up before animal control gets there. But anyway, I let her run, and she said, "You guys just put in that brand new walking track over at the park." And I thought, "Oh, finally, somewhere that I can go in peace and I can walk and get my exercise without being worried about getting, mauled by one of these vicious animals." Okay. And she said, "And today I went over to the park, and this woman was on the walking track with not one, but 2 dogs, Mayor, 2 dogs. And that's not fair because dogs don't pay taxes."
Okay.
And, of course you can hear, because my wife's in the car, and she looks at me like, "What did she just say?" And the lady, before I could even ask, she said, "That's right. That's just not fair because dogs don't pay taxes." Guys, the only thing that I could think of, literally, I had a sales class my last year in college. It was an elective, and I went in with all the arrogance of the world thinking that, shoot, I could walk in and teach this class. Man, I learned more in that one class than I did in all of my time in college. But anyway, the professor taught us this thing called feel, felt, found. I understand how you feel. Many people have felt the same way. What we have found is this. And so I said, "Well, Mrs. Jones, I understand exactly how you feel. I know there are many people that have felt the same way, and they've been concerned about dogs just running rampant and somebody possibly getting hurt. But what they have found is that if you give an opportunity for the owner to take their dog out on the walking track and get them some exercise and get them well socialized, they're less likely to be vicious and attack someone unnecessarily." And there was this little bit of pause, and Mrs. Jones said, "Wow, I never really thought of it that way. Thank you so much for calling me." And my wife's just looking at me like, "I cannot believe you just pulled that out of your ass. Like, are you kidding me?" And she was like, "I really appreciate you calling and explaining it to me. You have a fantastic day, Mayor." I said, "You too." So that is a glimpse into the real life of being an elected official.
Gotcha.
Man, feel, felt, found. I'm gonna have to use that. I'm not familiar with that, but that's a great concept.
Yeah, true story.
Man, that's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So I know you kind of like briefly touched about the power of 10.
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can kind of elaborate on that a little bit more for just listeners who are, inspired by your story as far as like having the struggles and then kind of overcoming that with the power of 10.
Absolutely. So kind of bringing it back into real estate and financial freedom and finding your freedom. We followed the advice a little bit begrudgingly that Pops had laid out there, saying, you really need to get to 10 doors as quickly as possible. And here's why. And here's basically what all of that paper tablecloth that he had written all over showed me. When you get to 10 doors, and you've got 1 or 2 or 3 units that are offline because either you're having, issues with, having to evict somebody's moved out and you're, going through repainting and new carpet or new flooring and you're updating it before you put it back online for someone to rent. And you've got, other situations that you've got 2 or 3 units that are offline at the same time. The other 6 or 7 units that are still bringing income in, they will carry all of the expenses for you so that you're not stressed and that you're not freaking out like we were when somebody on those 2 houses that we were left over holding after the real estate crash, somebody would miss their payment. I'm having to come up with that extra $1,500. Somebody would move out and I'd have to go and spend, thousands of dollars getting it ready for somebody else to move back in, when I didn't really have that money. It just, when you get to 10 doors, like the pressure is off. And so as I say, we said, okay, we're going to try it. My wife and I talked about it and said, look, he's a whole lot smarter than I am. And he's already laid it out. Like all I have to do is just be a good listener. And I just followed exactly what he said to do. And I swear, guys, as soon as we got to 10, it was like somebody flipped the switch and the pressure was off. And if 1 or 2 people were late on their payments and we had to go in and replace a water heater or update the flooring or change out, whatever it was like, okay, well, we may not be going, to Italy this weekend, but at least I'm not stressing because I've got 3 units that are offline at the same time. The other part of that is, when you've got 10 units together, unless, it's all in the same apartment style complex and God forbid you have something that takes them offline, a tornado or a fire or what have you, the likelihood that you're going to have all 10 units down at the same time is really, really low. It almost never happens. And so you've got income coming in from the other units that are online that really help offset any of the oh craps, what's going to happen this month or what's going to happen that month. And then once you start building beyond that number, then you've got an opportunity to start putting funds aside in the rainy day fund. And so there's a guy up north that I love to listen to his books on audio when I'm in the gym working out. His name is Mike Michalowicz, and he does a book called Profits First. And one of the things he talks about in that book is, making sure that you're pulling funds aside every month, just automatically before anything hits your actual true bank account. Put money aside for profit, put money aside for property taxes, put money aside for insurance, put money aside for, the repairs that have to be made, the occasional water heater or what have you. And so again, just being a good listener and following what other people that are a lot smarter than me have said to do. We did exactly what Mike said, and we opened up multiple bank accounts and said, okay, we're going to just right off the top, we're going to pull so much each month out of all of those and put it aside. And then, with one of these bills comes up, I'm not stressing, and the financial freedom that you get from that, gosh, man, it just, you almost just can't put a price tag on it. It's funny because, I was listening to the episode you guys did with Jesse Vasquez, is that right? Vasquez? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, he talks about, at some point, that feeling almost makes you unemployable. And it's the God's honest truth. Like I at this point, I think I would probably be a terrible employee because, I've had a taste of this for so long now. And for anybody that's listening or watching this online, the one thing that I can tell you that really set me apart, again, not that I'm special, but the thing that set me apart from a lot of people that will listen to this or listen to Jesse or listen to others that you guys interview is just taking action. Just have them do something, like just like a lot of us, we're not overly special. We just take action. And you know what? If it's wrong, then we fix it. We find a way to fix it and just keep moving forward. Don't quit. Just don't quit.
I love that. And, we actually had the luxury of actually seeing Mike live in your neck of the woods. He was just in Nashville maybe about 2 months ago. Omid and we were there, and he was, once again, he knocked it out the park. Like the guy, I don't think he know how to hit a third base hit or second base hit. Like, I think he specialized in grand slams, not home runs, grand slams, right? Because he's really that good. So profit first is something that that is great. I do love this power 10, of the just having enough cash flow, and just in case of a few properties happen to need to be turned over, or just tenants not doing their end of the stick or holding up their end of the bargain, you're still cash flowing enough to sit there and make sure everything's okay. So I guess the Flippin Mayor, what's next on the chart, man? You flipped houses, you're a buy and holder, you're above the power 10, you are a fantastic mayor with the feel, felt, found, the 3 F's I wrote down here. So what's next for you?
So my wife and I opened an insurance agency, excuse me, a couple of years ago. We had some people that we were working with that had some natural disaster type stuff had happened to them in their community. And a lot of these folks were just underinsured. And it wasn't necessarily that the insurance company itself was taking advantage of them. A lot of times they just had agents that either were lazy or they just didn't do a really good job of making sure that their clients were properly covered. And I really felt like God had laid that on my heart to come back to my community and work to make a difference there. And there's a lot of really good agents here in our community. But one of the things that I really feel like is a mission with that is just to make sure that, people are properly insured, and making sure that if there's an opportunity for that person to kind of fill in some gaps where needed, that you're at least giving them that ability to do so. Now, obviously it's nice that also is residual income, and building that business really works hand in hand with doing the real estate like I do. And it's very enjoyable because, on the real estate side, I'm getting to help people. And sometimes you solve a problem because somebody's got a house that they just need to sell and sell quickly, and they don't want to fix it, and they don't want to list it with a real estate agent. They just need somebody that can come in and just solve their problem. And I love being able to do that. Same thing with, tenants that are, in a hurry and they need to get into a place, and they need to know that you're going to just not be a slumlord, that you're going to take care of them and take care of the property and try and look out for them, while still being a good steward of, what you've been blessed with. And that's an awesome feeling. And then the same thing with the insurance side of it. It's a lot of fun because, sometimes you get to save people money, and sometimes you get to help them fill in the gaps, and sometimes you can do both. And when you can do that, man, there is just no greater feeling. And I'm not going to say that the paycheck is not important. But dude, that feeling you get inside when you truly help someone in such a way that they can lay their head down at night and know that if, God forbid, the absolute worst happened to them or their home, they and their family are covered, dude, that's a great feeling.
No, I think there's a lot of people don't know what policies they buy. They just buy the policy, and maybe they're price sensitive, or they just copy, right? Yeah, like so how do you get people informed or know what is the best product for whatever their situation is?
So a lot of times it's word of mouth, which is better. I tell people all the time, that's better than buying, TV ads and billboards on the interstate. There's nothing like, Lenny telling, oh, me, dude, my insurance guy's a rock star and you need to sit down and talk to him. I mean, like, you're going to listen to that a lot sooner than you're going to listen to a TV ad. And so the overwhelming majority of what we do all comes from referrals, which is the highest form of flattery. And I really, I take a lot of pride in that. When you've done the right thing and somebody helps you pay it forward, that's awesome. I love it.
You're so right on that, because Omid and I, we have some property in the same market, and he was in the market before me, and I just sent him a text message and said, "Hey man, who are you using for insurance?" And he said exactly what you said. This guy's the best. Check him out. He'll hook you up. And that's exactly what happened. But Flippin Mayor, it seems like, man, we could talk to you forever. So we'd love to have you back on. But until then, what does find your freedom mean to you?
Find your freedom to me means hitting that number with a side hustle or whatever that is, hitting that number where you've got enough income coming in on that side hustle, coming in from other projects that you're doing, where if you were to quit your day job, your 9 to 5, you could do that and not skip a beat. Are you going to take the family on a 2-week cruise, all expenses paid? Maybe not. But are you going to have to stress when you have to go put gas in your car? Nope. When that mortgage comes due? Nope. So for me, man, find your freedom means just work, smart, sometimes hard, but smart. Persevere, don't quit. Just keep pushing forward, man. Good things will happen, I promise. Always does.
So I like your background. I mean, you got the shovels, you got the sign. So say somebody wants to connect with you. How do they find you?
Usually laying out in a, no, I was going to say laying out by the pool, and I don't even have a pool. So there we go. That's to find me. Obviously, either Facebook, they can search Perry Keenan, or just the Flippin Mayor, especially on Instagram. That's the easiest way. Just make sure you drop the G. It's FLIPPIN, Flippin. Just like you would say, man, are you flipping kidding me? Yep. So it's the Flippin Mayor. So yeah, it works, man. It's easy. It just rolls off the tongue.
That's great. All right. So what we like to do in the show at the end is we like to have this big boom session. Mm-hmm. And for the listeners, we got the Flippin Mayor. He is getting ready. So for people who can't see this, he's sitting up, he's ready to go. So what we're going to do is I'm going to count to 3. And right after 3, in a uniform manner, we're going to say boom, right? We're going to try our best to make sure those shovels in your background fall off the wall. All right. So that's the goal. All right. So y'all guys ready?
Ready. Let's do it.
All right, fantastic. 1, 2, 3. Boom! Awesome. Check this out. We just had a fantastic episode here at Find Your Freedom with our friend, the Flippin Mayor. He is absolutely amazing. Let me just tell you just some of the things that he mentioned that you never want to forget, which is the power of 10. I'm not going to go into that because I want you to listen to this episode and really understand what that truly means. And what was really special too is the feel, felt, found. That's something that you definitely want to know about. So listen to this episode, and we want to make sure that you listen, give an honest 5-star review, because that's the way that we continue to bring on fantastic guests like the Flippin Mayor, which name is much cooler than mine. And I have to sit here and tip my hat, off to him. But, here at Find Your Freedom, we have something for you for your journey. For you to find your freedom is easily downloadable. Believe me, it's packed with so many different things that you want to really be amazed about. It's free. All you have to do is go to findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Once again, findyourfreedom.com/freedom kit. Now, what we would like for you to do is also subscribe. Also, make sure that you share our episode with all your friends, your mom, your brother, your sister, your cousin, your aunt, your uncle. Share it with all your coworkers, the ones that you like, and most importantly, the ones that you don't like too. Hey, just take the link and just email it to everybody in your contact list. Until the next episode of Find Your Freedom, we talk to you soon. Peace.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to Find Your Freedom. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, please help us spread the word by leaving a rating and review and sharing the podcast with friends, family, and colleagues. Until next time, get out there and find your freedom.